I got a feeling she forgot because when I called, she said, oh, okay. Yes.
We could begin without her.
It's coming up live.
Okay.
And
There she is. Morning, Peachy.
we are live.
Peachy's not.
Okay.
She's not audio.
Peachy, turn your audio on.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
We
Sorry.
are all done.
I think we're all set.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to remind the public, if they're listening, that the number to call in for public comment will be 231-256-8103. That's 231-256-8103. So could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So then we have roll call, please.
Commissioner Anstorgi,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Commissioner Bonnick,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Little,
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner,
Present.
all present.
Thank you. So again, that would bring us to public comment, and I'd like to reiterate the phone number for call-in is 231-256-8103. 231-256-8103. If there's any public comment, please call in. Okay, with hearing none, I'll move on to the purpose of the meeting. And the number one item is the COVID-19 impact in Leelanau County. We'll turn that over to Matt.
Good morning.
Morning.
Matt.
All right. We are holding strong at 9 cases in Leelanau County still. For the Benzie Leelanau District Health Department area, Benzie County still has 4 cases, so we are holding steady at 13 for the district. There are a couple instances that could affect that number in the coming days and maybe a week. Over the weekend, the Department of Health and Human Services had an issue with their software. They claim that they haven't lost any data, but going through the backlogs could affect the numbers in the coming days. So we could see an increase, we could see nothing at all. I just wanted to make the board aware that we may have an influx moving forward. As far as Leelanau County's response to COVID cases, we're still holding strong with our PPE in the field. Due to staffing insufficiencies, the dedicated COVID ambulances have been discontinued at this time. They had a successful run, and if they are needed in the future, the fire chiefs will ensure that they can get those staffed again and respond. But as of right now, they are just responding with the jurisdictional ambulances at this time. We're still screening callers to get as much information about the scene as we can to have our responders don the appropriate PPE when necessary, especially when there's face-to-face contact. The daily new cases in Michigan has been on the decline, but there's still some skepticism about how well that's going to trend. We will see that in the next coming weeks to see if it's going to level out or continue to decline. So we will hold our breath with that. Other than that, it is business as usual. Are there any questions?
Matt, you want to talk about the FEMA funding? I know we probably will not get any funding, but I know you did fill out the proper paperwork.
Yep. Since it was a presidential declaration, the state is not going to be issuing us any reimbursements. It's going to come strictly from the federal level. We have established an account through the grants portal with FEMA. We're going to be competing nationwide for any kind of reimbursements, but we are tracking any purchases that we've made, any expenditures that would be allowable, and we will be submitting those. We haven't proved a whole lot of need for Leelanau County, so my confidence in any reimbursement is a little low, but that's not going to stop us from submitting for reimbursement.
Commissioner Answergi.
Matt, have you been coordinating any reimbursement with the health department?
The health is going to be submitting on their own, so it's going to be a separate reimbursement submittal for the county and for the health department, as with the townships. So any expenditures that the fire and EMS would have, they'd have to submit through their townships. And I've been coordinating with the fire chiefs to make sure that they have that all squared away.
Commissioner Rushton.
On the division.
Could you start over? We couldn't hear you at the beginning.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. Matt, my question is in regard to the division of the state. From what I understand, the governor has divided the state into certain sections. Is that consistent with the FEMA division?
As far as the EMHSD divisions, it is not consistent with that. We would be Region 6 with the governor's regions that she made up for reopening and whatnot. So
and do you know what?
Follow.
Okay. Do you know what Region 6 consists of?
To make it simple, it'd be Knuckles North in the Lower Peninsula.
Okay. Knuckles North. You got to be a little bit clearer for me.
Well, all right. Yes.
Is it Clare to Petoskey? Just kind of give me.
All the way up to the Mackinac Bridge.
Okay, so it's from Clare to the Mackinac. The whole
Right.
northern region is Region 6?
Yes. There could be some counties on the eastern side, Iosco and whatnot, that could be in a different region, but we're going to be grouped in with the rest of northern Michigan. So what affects the Mackinac Bridge will affect Leelanau County.
Well, how effective is that going to be with such a broad region?
It's tough to say at this point. I'd be speculating. I think with the cases that we've seen in Leelanau County, if we open up consistent with the rest of northern Michigan, I think that we will be in a better position than some. I think that the I-75 corridor may be affected a little more with rises in numbers and whatnot. Leelanau County would be a destination instead of a thoroughfare. So I think that we would stand a better chance than other counties to stay the same or not be as highly affected.
Well, possibly. It depends on the traffic that comes to our county.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
We can only speculate at this time.
Yep. Okay. Well, great answer. Thank you. Vague, but great.
Any other questions or statements?
Matt, could you talk about testing options? I understand there's going to be more tests available for people.
Yeah, as far as frontline responders, first responders, if they have any inkling to be tested, they can get those tests through the health department. Critical workers, at the very least, without any symptoms, they can get a referral from their medical doctor and coordinate through the health department to get tested. Other than that, if you do have symptoms, you would need to be referred by your doctor and still coordinate through the health department. So if there's anybody out there that would like to get tested, a good first place to call would be the health department in order to identify where they needed to go or get on the list and make an appointment.
Anything else? Next I have April. I think April's waiting there
He's here.
for Matt to get done.
Yep.
Well, talk about all of her efforts in senior services. And this is a great positive story here. So I thought you all need to hear about it from April. And why April sits down, we'll wish her a happy birthday. It was her birthday, I believe, Sunday, right, April?
Yes, yeah.
And I see your kids spoiled you.
Yes, of course.
Good.
Lots of hugs and kisses. It was all good.
All right. So April, your office has been extremely busy the last 6 weeks or so. If you would mind giving the board an update here, please?
Sure. Yeah, we have been very busy. You know, we're considered essential and have been responding to needs. Just an update, kind of, we provide, you know, with the millage, we're able to do in-home services through Comfort Keepers in Munson, and those services have continued to take place. There has been some homemaking that has been put on hold due to staffing levels for the agencies, but personal care and respite and med management services have continued to take place. We've been working with our nurse at ShareCare, and she's been doing weekly calls to all of our in-home service clients, checking on them to see what their needs may be and how we can assist them. And that's been really good. We've gotten really great feedback. People are happy to talk to someone, so it's been good. And then we have, so one of the issues that has come up is we've seen a lot of food insecurity. With people having trouble accessing food or not having enough food. And this has been a topic of discussion that's been with Area Agency on Aging and other Commission on Aging directors, wondering if this is, you know, a perception, or is this a perceived concern? Is this something that has always been going on? And it's kind of come to light that we have a lot of seniors who have always struggled with food insecurity and have not been comfortable and coming forward with that and reaching out, saying that they had needs, but because everybody seems to be kind of in that boat, that's the, you know, everyone's talking about that in media. We have a lot of people that are more comfortable coming forward and saying, I'm in need. I can't, I'm in trouble accessing, getting to the grocery store, or I don't have enough food. And so we've kind of ramped up our efforts in that way. We've been collaborating with Leelanau Christian Neighbors and Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels traditionally is offered to seniors who are homebound or have an inability to prepare a meal. In light of the situation of seniors struggling to get to the grocery store or having access, we've opened that up to anybody that needs meals can receive them as a senior. So we've been working getting people on a frozen meal route. Meals on Wheels have been providing 7 frozen meals once a week to our seniors in home. And then we noticed a lot of seniors going through Leelanau Christian Neighbors food pantry services. So we're collaborating with them, and we're picking up extra frozen Meals on Wheels in Traverse City on Mondays and bringing them to the food pantry services and handing those out to seniors that would be eligible. And the response has been extremely appreciative and excited to have those meals. So we're continuing to do that. And when we're trying to get those seniors that have been taking them each week to get them on a route so that the volunteers can just deliver them directly to their home. But we've delivered several hundred meals in the past couple weeks, and it's been a great success. And then we have been working with Jim Munich, who's a community member with the Congregational Church in Suttons Bay, has organized some community members. He's been raising money to purchase meals through restaurants. And then, so with my staff and then volunteers, we've been delivering to 350 seniors each week a lunch prepared from a restaurant. And so that has been great for a lot of these seniors. You know, having a restaurant lunch is a treat. So it's been a great joy to have that. And then it's also been nice to, see someone coming to their home, either through the window or the door, as we leave a meal for them. And it's allowing us another checkpoint to say, how are you doing? Is there anything we can get for you? Just to check on the status. So addressing twofold. And then it's also been a great thing for the restaurants and keeping them going. And we did find out, we were concerned that last week was going to be our last week, but so far they have more money, and we're going to continue for the next couple weeks at least. So that's been a great program. And Share Care has been doing great. We're working them. They're volunteers for those seniors that can call in an order to a grocery store. They have volunteers that will go pick up the orders and deliver them to seniors' doors. So that's been another great service point. We created a pandemic line item for donations. People have been wanting to give us donations to help with unmet needs and food for anything that would come up. So I don't know what the total number is as of today, but I know it's over $1,000. And so last week we started purchasing produce and creating small produce bags, because that's been one of the biggest things of people saying, I really miss having produce, fruits and vegetables. So that's been a great idea that we put forth, and people are asking, can we get another bag, or how can we get on that? So I've been doing that. And then, but we also have noticed that in the last week, especially, we're seeing an uptick in kind of fear and anxiety. It's just kind of coming forward with more seniors, just kind of anxious, and letting us know they're really struggling either with the isolation piece or we've had a lot of veterans that have talked about post-traumatic stress disorder that's come up for them. So we're trying to get resources out to people, trying to be that listening ear that people can always call our office and we can talk to them and try to connect them with supports in the community. And then, so I mean, we know statewide that APS, Adult Protective Service reports are up, and we're seeing a little bit of that. I know we've spoken with some of the workers. They're working from home primarily. They're able to do, Zoom meetings, but they're not going out into a home to investigate unless it's a very dire situation. So we keeping tabs on that and recognizing that these times also bring about abuse and neglect and scams and financial exploitation as well. But other than that, we're just trying to continue to be a support to anybody that has a need.
April, for people that are watching us live or may watch it later, could you give the phone number if someone wants to call and help out with the meals? What's the best phone number to call?
Just call our office. Because we can connect people with the right place to go. So 256-8121 is our office number.
And the area code is 231.
231-256-8121.
Yeah.
And we're just encouraging everyone to check on neighbors and friends and family, to make calls or check in on people. One of the questions we found is be very helpful is to ask, what did you eat today? Not just do you have food, but what did you eat? Because that's a telling situation. We're learning a lot that some people are struggling. They may have food, but they're struggling to prepare that food. So that gives us another idea of what kind of supports they may need. I think just a friendly face or a friendly voice is very encouraging during these times.
It's a small thing, but something I found out. I have some seniors that live next to me, and I'm giving them my old newspapers and magazines, and they really appreciate that. Just the contact, and they get to get caught up on the news and so forth. So just small things, but I think just reaching out to them, calling them, see how they're doing, drop off a meal, drop off a newspaper or a magazine, really makes their day.
Yeah, we found when we did the restaurant lunches, that was something we learned. We have a gentleman, he is not able to get out, and so he was asking, can you bring me a newspaper? So we always collect a bunch of newspapers and bring them. We've had people that say, I'm running out of puzzles. Can you bring us some puzzles? So we've done puzzle deliveries. We had a lady that I need some yarn. I knit and I crochet and I don't have any yarn. So we've been able to pull together resources and deliver those things as well. So. So any
Well,
questions?
thank you, April.
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Rettenbach.
I just think you're doing a wonderful job, April, and I love the idea of that fresh produce bag, and that just will make such a difference to people. I mean, I know in my own household, being a senior, that that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to, is getting fresh produce every week. So
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Commissioner Rushton.
Suggested at our opioid meeting the other day that if we adopt a senior in the neighborhood, pick one or two seniors in your own community and do like Chad said, bring a newspaper, pick up their mail, bring it to them. That's what we do. We pick up their mail every second day and find out if they have any needs that you might be able to fulfill. And the other thing that I had mentioned to Chet was right now I'm planting and, just to take maybe a potted chive plant or a parsley plant or something that they can watch grow. I don't know, just all suggestions. But yes, April, your team is doing a great job. The community support is terrific. And we all care about our seniors.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sutis Little. Did you raise your hand? I thought you wanted to speak. No? Okay. Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I had a couple of questions. First of all, April, thank you for all your hard work. Are all your employees working?
Yes, we're all working.
Everybody's working. Okay. Your frozen meals, are they prepared in Traverse City, you said?
Yes, they're prepared through the Goodwill Industry Kitchen. That's who prepares the meals for Meals on Wheels. So we just get them from them.
Okay. And now how is it working with the restaurants? Are they donating food? Are we paying you said it's helping them, so we must be paying them a certain amount?
So I'm not paying, but a group of individuals have been raising money. So they're paying them.
Volunteer dollars are all.
Yep, they're all volunteer dollars. So it's not, I'm just providing, we provide the list of people. We've been doing the phone calls of seniors that we are aware of. We put out, asking people if they know of somebody. It's been predominantly in the Suttons Bay and then Northport Leland area. That was the request of the volunteers that have been raising the money. We have gone into Cedar as well, Maple City, as of, I think, last week or the week before. So we're expanding. We're not going all the way to Empire, Glen Arbor, that's a ways, but no. So they're raising the money. They're doing, Jim Unick is doing the negotiation with the restaurant and making the deals, and we provide the list and the routes, and we show up and help distribute it. So
Very nice. So these are fresh meals then?
yes, yep.
That I really like that idea.
Yeah, so it's typically been like a sandwich and soup or fruit, chips, just something. Every restaurant has done something a little different, but typically along that line.
Very nice. It's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, or we'll move on then to just policies?
Yes, yeah,
All right,
thank you.
we'll move on to
Thank you,
policy.
April.
Thank you very much, April.
Yeah. I just thought it'd be nice to have some positive news. I thought April and the staff did just a great job, so thank you. Policies, I'm in part of a webinar every week with the Michigan Association of County and our insurance provider just to make sure that we're in line, and I believe we are. I think Michelle and I have been looking at our policies. I think we're in good shape. This time we're not making any recommendation to make any modifications on our policies. I have another, I think, conference call today at 2 o'clock about that with our insurance provider, just to make sure that we're covered in terms of our risk management. But I think we are at this point. The policy that you passed in March actually pretty much mirrors what risk management is recommending to counties. And so in terms of policies, I don't believe we have to make any adjustments at this time.
Seeing no, Commissioner Rushton.
Um, at the onset of this, I believe, Chuck, that you issued a directive to the department heads in regards to purchasing.
Yes,
Would you speak to that issue?
yeah,
And
yeah,
is it still effective today?
well, yes, we are checking all of our purchasing, and let me back up by responding to the question because I'm not sure if I understand it. When this first came out, I issued a directive that we do only essential purchasing, and I think our department heads and the elected officials have been very good about that. As you know, Michelle and Jen, they're bulldogs when it comes to checking out any type of purchases, but I think every department head has been very conscientious, and we've been keeping our expenses as low as possible. I have not seen anything that would be considered optional. There's a few things that were requested that have not been approved internally, simply for that reason. But in terms of that, we also are not doing, obviously, any conference or travels or seminars. And so I think everyone, and I want to compliment every department head, every elected official, everyone that's doing the best they can to stay within budget and not to purchase things that are not at this point required. The only major purchase we made from a safety perspective is those shields that we purchased for all the offices. They were purchased last week. I believe we had 22 shields. Michelle, is that correct, that we purchased? Approximately 22 shields. For the countertops, those were ordered last week. Those will be coming in here shortly. Those are the same type of shields that Grand Traverse County purchases. So if and when we open up, we're trying to make sure that we have protection in place for our employees as well as the customers coming in here. So we did that. We purchased some extra sanitizing stations for the hallways here also. But outside of that, I think we all have been very careful about any type of expenditures.
Thank you for that.
All right, so then we would move on to financial.
Yeah, I think Jen Zawicki is, there she is, coming in to give us an update. We had a budget finance meeting last week, and I thought Jen, as always, has done a fantastic job of taking complex numbers and make it to the point where we all can understand it. And then Commissioner Answorthy asked for some information that between Jen and our treasurer, John Gallagher, they put together some charts. So Jen, you want to just give an overview here and then open up for questions?
Sure. I sent to you a revenue and expense report via email and also in hard copy looking from 2007 to 2019. I did have a conversation with Tony yesterday just to go over kind of what he's looking for in the future when it comes to financials. And we had a great conversation. And we have just a little difference of opinion, and I know John will probably the same. I'm looking more right now for this year on what will happen with our federal money and what will happen with our state money. And that's an I don't know right now. Will there be PILT? It's hard to say. We know our convention and tourism is going to be down. Anything that's based on travel, people coming to Michigan, those kind of things. And Tony and I had a great conversation. In our, let's say 13 million, yes, the state and federal is in essence smaller. His concern is more along the line of property taxes. So when you're looking at the revenue and expense report that I sent you, what he and I had discussed is what you really want to take a look at, and I mentioned something to Lori Spencer this morning. You want to see our basically our revenue flow when we're in a recession. So after a recession of 2008, you can see along my spreadsheet that your revenues actually stay and hold until about 2012. So we're about 3 years out in our history from your reports as to where you see that dip in revenue, and then you see it come back and then become a stronghold again. And when I talked to Lori this morning, that falls into, yes, we will still be collecting property taxes, but will there be foreclosures that take our values down? What are the state going to do to values? And I think that's where Tony's kind of looking for, that our future is going to be a little bit more on the stay the course. We may have to look at, each year a little bit more about how our property values are holding, for foreclosures, those kinds of things we did after 2008. Does anybody have any questions on what was sent to them?
Go ahead, Tony. Commissioner Ansori.
Here, yeah, if you look out there, what the state has already done, Elmwood Township had money coming in for their marina. It had already been approved and everything, and they clawed it back. They said, don't spend any more dollars. We're taking it all back for a project that they had already approved and basically said, here's the money, and they clawed it back. And I think we're going to see more of that just because of the budget deficits in Michigan. They have to resolve it. We have to have a balanced budget, so they're going to have to do something. So I do expect we're going to see some decrease in the money that we get from the state for various programs, PILT or whatever. But those are the smaller dollars. Why I asked for the information from John and Jen was to look back at the 2007 onward, because the 2008 recession, everything I've been reading right now, people have been forecasting that this current recession that we're just starting, they expect to be at least as bad as the 2008 recession. And a lot of people are saying it's going to be a lot worse. Unemployment's going to be a lot higher, foreclosures are going to be a lot higher, a lot more small businesses failing, that type of thing. So what I said is, at a minimum, we should expect no more than what we saw for the 2008 recession. So looking at 2007, what was our revenues then, and then what happened after that? And you'll see that, yes, we took a hit, but our revenues, the impact lags. The county isn't as immediately affected by property tax decreases. You have to actually, have to go through the process of all those foreclosures and the markets going down, and so there's a lag there. And even though we aren't seeing any impact to our finances today, I think we're going to see some in the future, just because of the nature of collecting property taxes, is there's a lag there. So all I'm trying to get across here was the idea that we should start planning now. We know there's going to be a recession. I don't think anybody doubts that based on what has already happened. The question, you can debate, how long is it going to last? How quick are you going to recover? All that. But I think we should be planning for the recession that we know is going to happen, at least. And like I told Jen, maybe I'm all wet. Maybe, things are going to go gangbusters, and, everything's going to snap back and like all that. But even if that happens, if we plan ahead, all we have is more money in our rainy day fund, and you can pay off some of the debt we already have out there, our pension debt. So I think it's still a good idea that, we start thinking about saving, attempting to reduce expenditures, because I think, and a lot of other people, if you look at what has already happened out there, there's going to be an impact. Yeah, it's going to hit us a little bit later as a governmental entity, but there's going to be an impact. That's my opinion, and I think we should start planning for that. So that's why I asked for the information going back to 2007, so that we could see. Yep, starting in 2008, we saw some declines, and that continued on for years. And it takes time to crawl back out of that recession. So I think we should plan for that. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner Rushton.
And I would just like to say I can't agree more, because that is also my concern. We're in stable condition today. However, we have a lot of unknowns out there, and unless we address the issue today and plan and project the best we can for the next 2 to 5 years, rein in our spending. And, we have to prepare for a worst case scenario like has been discussed, so that in the end, we meet our obligations. And if we have a rainy day fund at the end, like Tony says, we can pay off some of that longstanding debt that we have. So I couldn't agree more. And I personally would like to see long-term budgeting. And I recognize it's a guess, but I would like to have short and long-term budgeting over the next couple years, just so that we can have an idea of what our obligations are in detail, and different scenarios. What does it look like if our property taxes are reduced by 10%, 20%, or 50%? We just don't know. And how do we function?
The timing of discussion is good because, under normal circumstances, we start the budget process in June. And so we're going to have those discussions here fairly soon. We're already been getting ready for the 2021 budget. So timing is good because, as you know, we start the process in June, have meetings from June through September. And so it's ideal to have that discussion and be proactive versus reactive. So just in terms of our normal process, we would start that fairly soon. But with things going on, I think we're going to have some more lengthy discussions. And I'm sure in the next month or two, we'll have a better idea on at least what may be the options here. Everyone's kind of up in the air seeing what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks in terms of the opening and the budgets and revenue and so forth. But yes, I definitely agree. I think I mentioned before that Jen, Michelle, John, and I have been meeting on a regular basis since March about the budget and getting feedback from our staff and employees and so forth. And so I definitely agree that we need to keep a focus on this. I think it needs to be a discussion item every month on our budget. And once again, we'll start the budget process here shortly and need to have very in-depth discussions. I'm guessing by the time we have our special board meetings and budget in June, starting in June, we'll have at least some idea what direction we're going.
Jen, I had a question because from 2007 to 2008, there was an immediate $2 million drop, basically. Do you anticipate the same thing from 2019 to 2020 or 2020 to 2021?
Well, Michelle and I talked about that yesterday a little bit, and I didn't delve into those revenues from 07. But I do know that the millage was passed for 911. And so if I was to go back and look historically, I believe that 13 million is not a property, is not part of our revenues. Because what I see in 2007 is that the collection of the property taxes shows up at 10.5. So what I believe probably happened is that there's something that's in the 402 that's not supposed to be there. Because then in 08, 09, you're at 8.7, 8.3. Our property tax collection in 07, and John can follow up with an email to all you, probably should have been around the 8.5, 8.7-ish. And so I didn't dive into that number, but John certainly can look into why that's 10.5 on the property taxes. But that's clearly, that's typically, that would not be the number that we would have reported. I mean, as of right now, John's budgeting 9.4 in 2020. So taking in 10.5 is just a clerical error, is what I would say. But he certainly can follow up and email you guys and let you know what the property tax is, if that's the true number or not. That's not the pattern that I see. And I did not dive into that revenue number.
So you don't anticipate a $2 million drop in revenue for 2021?
No, I believe that that's a clerical error or somewhere in line with, if I was to go back in history, and Michelle might remember, I started in 05. So with the 911 millage, the 911 millage came in to the general fund and then was dispersed out to 911. And so if the number for that allocation was used, I believe it may have been all collected as one,
and then would have been taken care of in like the next year or so with a transfer to get that 911 fund going with that millage money. But John can look into that for you.
All right. Commissioner Lautner.
Am I on? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That was what I was going to ask. I think I was going to ask that we maybe tear apart those revenues and look at those and see line by line what those revenues were coming from. And I think Jen's already on top of that. I agree with Tony and I agree with Deb that we should move forward very careful in any expenditures that are not absolutely necessary to prepare. On the other hand, I'm a little more optimistic in the fact that we're coming from a better place economically going into this. We had an economy that was absolutely booming. And if we can get back to work soon, get back to work safely very soon, that we may not have very big a hit. I am concerned about foreclosures because I know a lot of people that are really struggling who have rentals, and the renters don't have to pay their rent right now. And yet the landowner still has, mortgage payments, and they still have that aren't going to be forgiven. They might be deferred a little bit, but they're not going to be forgiven. They still have their expenses, they still have their taxes, they still have their upkeep, etc. And yet they're not getting their rent coming in, and don't really know whether they will ever be able to make that up, because it's very difficult sometimes for renters to make that up if they do fall behind. So I'm a little concerned about that. What's going to happen with those or to our rental market after that, because it could just increase prices to our. So I would just say, I agree. Let's be very cautious moving forward in anything that's not absolutely necessary for us to fund, or is not something that's going to create revenues for us in the future.
Commissioner Rushton.
I just wanted to say, I don't know what the landscape was back in 2008. That I don't know how the recession impacted this county directly as far as businesses and jobs. I don't know how different this recession is. We don't know how many businesses are going to close. We don't know how many of those businesses are going to be able to employ the number of employees that they had prior to this COVID, the added expense to ramp up for the protection of employees. So as far as I'm concerned, our businesses in our county may not choose to be in business in the future, eliminating jobs. When we eliminate jobs, it's trickle down. They can't pay their taxes, among other things. So I really think that this could be very different compared to 2008. And I think a couple things that we should consider moving forward, not on the table today, but it should be on the table at some point as we move through this process, is spending freezes, hiring freezes, until we actually have a clear picture on what the landscape is going to look like. Remember, we as a government, we get most of our money from the people. If the people if they do not have the ability to pay, where are we going to get our money from? printing presses right now are printing greenbacks like they're going out of style. And all that does is reduces the value of the dollar. So I think we really need to look at this and look at this very hard. And I think we need to take drastic measures in the beginning so that in the end, we come out being able to provide the services that are needed to keep the county and the businesses operational, like our seniors, you know, the assistance with our seniors and our clerk's department, the deeds, register of deeds and treasurer and construction codes, equalization. All of those things are necessary operations for the citizens in Leelanau County. So I just think we need to take a really hard look at this.
Commissioner Ansari.
I would like to have, you know, we're going to be moving into the budget process. So from my perspective, I think we need two things. First, we need to have, you know, an agreement on what the numbers are, you know, the treasurer and the clerk's office, you know, they got, I don't know what the numbers are, but we need to come to an agreement. What are our actual revenue numbers over that period of time? And secondly, we need to know where we did actually have declines. You know, if we had a big drop in transfer taxes that come to the county in the last recession, I think we're going to see that again. So, you know, that department may have to look at it and say, okay, hey, I got somebody retiring. We're not going to replace that person. You know, where are we going to see the drops? You know, yes, you know, construction codes, building safety may have a decrease because of a downturn in the economy. Well, what does that mean as far as employment goes? You know, what are we going to do? We should have an idea when we're going through the budget process of what the actual numbers were last time, so we can see where our numbers are actually coming from if we forecast in the future. And we can go do it by department. And maybe, yeah, you know, we look at it and say, hey, you know, the sheriff's department, a lot of employees, crime is down, you know, maybe we don't need as many people. I don't know, you know, though, but in order to actually forecast where we're going, we have to know where we've been. And I just, you know, I would hope that we can get some concurrence between the treasurer's office and the clerk's office. What are the numbers? And then, you know, when we're going through the budget process, we come to an agreement to say, hey, you know, we're going to make a guess. This is what's going to happen. That's all we can do our best guess and move from there. That's what I would ask those two things, you know, come to an agreement on what the numbers really are and where they came from last time, so that when we're forecasting, what are we going to do this time for this recession, we're at least working from some kind of historical basis and not just picking numbers out of the air.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
I appreciate Commissioner Ansargi's comments very much. And I think that it's what we've done in the past with our budgeting on a year-to-year basis, but even more historical information will be necessary going forward. And I think that we'll be able to make our decisions, you know, better based on that. And especially the confusion with those 2007, 2008 numbers that may have incorrectly affected the tax revenue that was reported. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'd move on to personnel.
Yeah, just a follow-up on the financial thing. It reminds me of that old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Now. I think this board has been very conservative over the last 20 years, which has put us in better shape than most counties. And that's a compliment to all the commissioners. I'm on a weekly call with my fellow administrators. I have another one tomorrow afternoon. As you remember, we were listed as the 9th best financial county in the state last year by, I think, Bridge Magazine and several other things. So because of all the work that has happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years, we are seeing the benefits of that right now, which is a good thing. We don't know what the future holds. Someone brought up construction codes. And it's interesting because if you look at the revenue from January through into March, we're actually ahead of last year, and last year was a near record pace. And it's interesting because, as you know, construction reopens here this Friday, and their phones have been ringing off the hook with people who have projects ready to go. So, you know, how's that going to impact us? Well, it could be in terms of construction code numbers and inspections, they could be up actually because there is a demand out there. Just since the announcement that they can begin working again on May 8th, there's been a lot of activities with people planning, and there were a lot of plans in place for Leelanau County prior to the shutdown. So very interesting to see if people that were planning remodeling or additions or new houses or constructions are going to continue with those projects. The interesting will be the commercial. There are some major commercial projects in the pipeline for Leelanau County. Are those going to go through or not? So I think we will have a better idea in the next couple of months. In terms of personnel, as I stated, we have been in contact. I've been in contact with my peers throughout the state. At this point, of the 83 counties, the ones that are struggling financially were the ones that are struggling prior to the shutdown. There's some counties that, for financial reasons, have had challenges the last couple of years. This has only made it worse. Fortunately, as Jen pointed out, we are in better shape than most counties. At this point, I, like most administrators throughout the state, are not recommending layoffs. We're doing it on a month-by-month basis. A few counties have made some personnel cuts. They've been minor. Of the 83 counties, I think 4 of them have. What some counties are looking at is furlough. And let me explain the difference between a layoff and a furlough. When you get a layoff, it ends your benefits. When you get furlough, you keep your benefits. And so some counties are doing is they're offering actually voluntary furlough for people that wish to take some time off. I just heard the news this morning, and I don't have the details, that Emmett County has a substantial amount of people that they are furloughing this week for a couple of weeks. And they listed that one of the reasons they said it is the lack of revenue coming in from constructions and permits and state revenue. And they offered a voluntarily furlough that quite a few of their employees have taken. I know they have had some other financial issues there. So this time, at least for the month of May, we are not recommending any personnel cuts or reductions. We've had internal discussions as a group and also individually which departments, how we're going to proceed. I know no one that's asking for additional personnel. I'm sure that will not happen now. I'm cautiously optimistic, and it's hard to tell whether we're going to open up in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, but we're not going back to normal. But there seems to be a lot of calls coming in, a lot of emails coming up. I talked to Dorothy Miller last week, and actually for Register of Deeds, they have been almost at normal capacity with the number of transactions. And it's interesting because of the mortgage rates being low and people are being home, people are spending more time. I think they have more time to look at options, and many people are refinancing their houses. And so that has an impact on their traffic. You heard from Senior Services how busy they are. I think construction codes is one we have to keep an eye out, but fortunately, we have been very conservative over the years, and we were anticipating this. The difference between now and 2006 and 7, 8 is that we have a healthy fund balance. I think people learned their lesson last time. And so we do have a fund balance because even if it would drop out, and I'm not sure it's going to drop out in construction based on the phone calls and the feedback that we're getting from contractors. One of the best things we ever did was implement that online service last year. People are still using that. People are still planning. The good thing is people are still planning for the future. They're still planning for projects 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 months out into the future, just by the number of people calling in and the online application. So we'll have a better idea on that. But as of now, it is our recommendation from the clerk, myself, and John, the treasurer, and Jen, that at this point, we issue no layoff notice at this point, review it month by month. We see what happens at the state level. We'll see what happens at the federal level. And we are starting the budget process here shortly. But as Jen pointed out, right now, financially, we're in good shape, structurally shape. We're proceeding with businesses. We are hoping we can have at least a partial reopening after May 15th. As I understand, the governor's going to have some announcements Thursday or Friday of this week. The pattern has been usually a week before the expiration of the shutdown or a new order, there's a clarification and an update. So I'm assuming that will happen probably Thursday afternoon. So we'll see where we are. So we are preparing for all scenarios. We had I thought a very good department head meeting last week where I just gave an update where we are. And there are no answers. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now. But I think everyone is working together well. We're looking at options. I've had internal private discussions with almost every department head, how they're going to proceed, what the issues are, what their staffing levels are. But I think everyone is trying to make the best of the situation going forward. And we just have to kind of keep an eye on it. And you're right, during the budget process, it's going to be critical. As Jen keeps pointing out, and John does too, that for 2020, we're structurally in very good shape. It's moving forward, what's going to happen 21, 22, 23, which is the unknown. And we can look at various scenarios and going forward. But at this point, I just want to thank everyone for their support internally. People are working hard. It's amazing. Michelle and I will tell you, we thought with the shutdown that things would actually slow down, but that's not been the case. It's just a different type of flow, different type of questions coming through. Michelle has elections coming up, and that's a major manpower effort. So she's having meetings ongoing. She's doing training sessions. So we're trying to make the best of the situation. And I think I don't know anyone that has not had a phone call, return, or email responded to. And we're getting a lot of unique calls from people just looking for advice. People don't know what to do. So they're calling, looking for advice, whether it's construction, whether it's can they travel, are the stores open, can we go forward with a marriage license? We still have people proceeding with marriages, which I think is a good thing. People are going forward. The courts are trying to do the best they can under the circumstances. I know there's been Zoom hearings because they've been using the Polycom system here. And we're trying to make the best of the situation, not knowing what the future holds. The only position that I have chosen not to fill that was vacant, we did have in our budget for the Parks and Recs, a part-time custodial maintenance position. We did advertise that before all this. We got very few applicants, and just with everything going on, I think we're going to keep that position vacant and not filled. It's minor, but I think it does create a situation where we have to look at every dollar, every cent, and everything that we spend. So for now, we're not going forward with that part-time Parks and Recs position. In terms of other personnel, I think we're going forward. We're looking at all options, and I'm sure this will be a major focus during our discussions this summer.
Commissioner Rush.
Yes, Chad, if you could please expand on the furlough option. So
Yeah.
if anybody is listening, they have an understanding. You
Yeah.
did say they get to keep their benefits, but I know what that means, but for the general public, they may not know what that means.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And once again, we're just exploring options. And once again, I'm trying to give an overview of what other counties in the state are doing. So let me explain the difference. When you're laid off at a certain date, you also lose your benefits, which means your health insurance and your retirement credit for the time that you are laid off. Once you're called back, if you're called back, obviously those resume. What quite a few counties are looking at is furloughs, and they're looking at optional furloughs. We're actually, and this would have to have the approval of the department head and the elected official and the county administrator. But there may be some people that wish to take 2, 3, 4 weeks off because of family situations, because of other situations there. So if employees are furloughed, which means they are still employed, however, they do not get their paycheck, they do keep their health insurance, they do not get their MERS credit for that time that they are furloughed. So let's just say we furlough someone for 2 months. They would not get payment for 2 months. They can draw unemployment for that period. However, they would continue with their health care at the same level they were when they were employed. However, they would not get their MERS credit for those months that they would not work. So that's how that works. So several counties are looking at the option, and I'll probably have more this week of offering voluntarily furloughs for employees that may wish to take time off. Now, obviously, that would all vary from office to office and we need approval. You can't just allow people not to work at their choice, but some counties are looking at it as an option. Other counties may do mandated furloughs where people are mandated to take 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks off. They keep their health care benefits. They do not keep their MERS. They do not get extra vacation or personal days during that time period, but they do keep the health care insurance.
Commissioner Rushton.
Thank you for that, Chet, because I think the message that we want to send out there is we want to keep our employees, all of them employed. That's our first
Yes.
priority. However,
Yes, thank you.
if our finances are restricted to the point that we have to make a change, it's nice to know that we have a couple options on the table so that we can work with those we employ for a softer blow or softer effect. So thank you for explaining
Yeah,
that.
I really think, and that's why we're saying not do anything during the month of May, wait till the 1st of June. I think really the key date for us is May 15th. What happens after May 15th? This is when the latest shutdown is scheduled to expire. Questions are, is there going to be an extension? Is there going to be a partial reopening? And if so, what does that look like? In addition to my call with the administrators, the Northern Michigan administrators, we have a conference call tomorrow to see how we're going to be prepared for a partial reopening. Because I assume if it does happen, it'll not be just a full opening on May 18th and maybe a partial opening. So we're trying to come up with plans, and that's why we ordered those shields for each countertops. That's why we're offering the sanitary stations. We may have to do like what stores do, where you separate yourself 6 feet. We may have some markers on the floor. People may have to call ahead to make an appointment, to schedule, to keep the traffic flow down. But we're looking at any and all options once we do reopen to the public. Do it in a way that's safe for our employees as well as safe for the public to come back into the building. We also are looking at options for commissioners. As you know, the current order that allows us to have remote meetings expires on May 12th, which is actually the day of our next meeting. However, based on the feedback I'm getting and feedback from our legal counsel yesterday, the odds are good that's going to be expanded through May 30th. But Michelle and I already have had discussions what we can do in this room to separate the commissioners and allow the public back in partially. We could take chairs out. We could limit the number of people in the room. We actually could add a couple of tables to this room to spread the commissioners out more. So we're looking at any and all options. And we want to be prepared for all the what ifs. If not when, but if there are some modifications, which I'm sure there will be. I'm sure it's not going to be May 18th, we're going to be back to business as usual. So we're trying to be prepared on what ifs. What if there's a partial reopening? How do we handle that? How do we maintain the safety of our employees and also the public coming into the building?
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the options that you're looking at, Chet, and I've got a question and then a statement. Would we have a vote on which way you go? You mentioned department head, elected officials, and yourself making the decisions on a layoff or a furlough?
Well, what happens is you as a board, you set the budget. So obviously you set the budget for each department. You don't get involved with the actual personnel on who would get laid off.
We set the staffing
I'm sorry,
level.
I lost you there.
We do set staffing level.
Yes. So you set the budget, you set staffing levels. You would not be involved with what specific people. A lot is mandated by the labor contracts. But yes, you would have to set the staffing levels and the budgets. And then we would have to implement, based on what you set, we would have to implement that within our policies and within the labor contracts.
Okay. Well, my concern is I hate to see us do layoffs, and I hate to see us do furloughs at the county. I would just as soon get our employees to work, doing work, whatever they can agree to work for us, even if it's crossing into another office that might need some help, etc. But rather than do the furlough. After last week's meeting, I had an opportunity to talk to several people about, what they're dealing with and going through, et cetera. What you didn't mention was terminations. And we've had a lot of people in our county that have dealt with terminations over this. So I don't want to see us go down that road either. If we can keep our employees on and employed, that's
Yes.
my goal.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, and that is our goal also. And I try to be cautiously optimistic, just based on the feedback we're getting from the people and the public. I think we will be able to get through this. We obviously will have to make changes. I think the public will make changes. I think more people are going to be doing stuff online. I think more people will be calling in versus coming in. I know the clerk's office has been very busy with phone calls. A lot of the general calls that come in, people don't know where to call, so they call our office. And I've seen them pick up on that. So I think people, psychologically will be changing their habits in terms of how they do business. I think more people will be doing online. We definitely have seen that with construction codes. We're actually spending a lot of time teaching people how to apply online. I think you got a copy yesterday of a very nice email from a gentleman in Northport who's been very pleased with the changes we made in that department, just with his services. So we're trying to be as much proactive as we can and work with people to keep their stress level low. Because we have people calling stressed out. They don't know how to pay their taxes. They don't know how to file a document. They don't know how to do this because people still are assuming we are closed. We have to get rid of that notion. And I understand people don't get involved in day-to-day details, but we are not closed. All the offices are opening. They're open. They're functioning. They're staffed. We have people in every office. It's just the building is closed to the public, but business is going on. People are still coming in here doing their paperwork. We have tried to make accommodations for every individual with their unique needs, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're trying to be as flexible as possible. But yes, our goal is to be financially conservative and safe, but still keep our employees maintained at their full capacity, if possible.
Commissioner Rushton, did you have something?
Just a thought that I had. Our construction codes going online has been so successful. My question is our IT department looking at working with the individual offices or departments to see how we may change how we do business with the public going forward? I'm not saying this week, this month.
Sure. No, actually, we've had those dialogue. I think one of the better things we did is actually our partnership with Safety Net. They have come up with some great ideas on how we can go forward. And Ron has been working with each department because we have some that now employees have access to all their files remotely so they can do their work no matter where they're located at, so forth. And yes, and we're trying to address the needs of each department so they can continue to serve. And I think it's working out quite well. I just think, for example, Michigan State, they are having virtual meetings on a very regular basis with their staff people, having dialogue how to go forward. They are coming in, they're doing their newsletters. You probably got some emails from either Jennifer or some of their staff people about upcoming events. They're doing them differently than they have in the past. I think we're going to continue to provide service, but maybe in a different format, in a different manner. And one of the best things that, as I pointed out before, fortunately for our building officials, we do have a healthy fund balance. We have been conservative with our spending, and therefore we're to the point where I don't think we'll have the devastation we did in 2007, 2008 in that office. I wasn't here, but Will Bunnick was here, and I think we had to lay off every single employee in that office just because maybe there wasn't enough planning going forward. It hit them very hard, very quickly, That's not gonna happen this time. We are prepared and we're looking at all options.
Commissioner Rushton.
Thank you, Chet, for that. And it's time that we start thinking outside the box. I know it's been going on internally, but I just think that that should be focused moving forward. The other item I wanted to mention, as I'm throwing it out there, I'm putting it on the table. In the commissioner's room, what about portable partial plexiglass
Yeah.
separators?
Yeah, actually,
Between
we have
each-
looked at that.
Yeah, where they could be portable, where they would be
Yes.
on rollers constructed, and then those divisions could be put in place,
Well,
Okay,
you'll be pleased to know that Michelle and I actually had a discussion last Friday. We have ordered the plexiglass portable ones for the offices first, because that's our first priority. But we actually have plans in place to do that. So yes, there are portable that come self-contained and they're made. And like I said, we ordered 22 different ones for our department heads first, because we wanted that to be our first response. But yes, we actually had a discussion. We also talked about, I think I mentioned it, removing the number of chairs in this room, so when we are open to public, they can still come in but be spaced out. We also talked about adding maybe some temporary tables where the commissioners sit, so we actually could physically spread people out. You could still be in the room but be spread out more. So yes, we are looking at all those options, but thank you for bringing that up.
that's all I have for the moment.
All right, thank you. So I think then that completes financials, though I do see the treasurer is here. Did you have any questions for him, or?
Yeah, we have John Gallagher there. John, can you hear us, John?
Yep. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So
So,
you guys don't have any questions on my report. I will dive into 2007. Jen is running the 2006 to see if there's what that number is, so we can do a comparison right now. There's been a lot of talk about foreclosures. I want you to assure you guys that, as an association, we're working hard to find a remedy so that we are not foreclosing. The current foreclosure deadline for 2017's taxes, which occurred on March 31st, 2020, has been extended to this point to June 28th. I expect that to be extended even further. I've talked with counsel. At this time, we have 20 parcels that are subject to foreclosure. We're going to reach out to each and every one of them and do a hardship extension until next year. So we're not going to be doing any foreclosures this year, just due to the financial impact that everybody's had and because of the issues that we have. Moving forward, foreclosures are going to change substantially. You guys are talking budgeting for 22, 23, 24. These foreclosures are going to change where they're not going to be going to auction and we're going to see the proceeds coming back to the county. We're going to have some fixed costs that we're going to be able to put on these parcels that the county is going to be made whole, but it may look more like a realtor situation where we're turning over, the county, any proceeds back to the parcel owner. We have a lot of lawsuits right now pending throughout the state, and this pandemic has just made things even worse. So I will provide an update as soon as we get more information, but as of right now, yeah, that's my update. But I will follow up today or tomorrow with the 2007 breakdown. Do you guys have any questions other than that?
Commissioner Answergi.
Thank you. Yeah, if you and Jen can get together and come up with whatever the numbers you think we should be looking at, that are, so that you're in concurrence, that we're using the right numbers. That's what I would like you guys to do.
Okay, so what I'm seeing is when I ran the report, I just went back to the office and ran the reports. So if you wanted to take a note, your 2005 property taxes collected is 6.5 million. Your property taxes in 2006 is 7.1 million. So the difference that you're going to have in the 2008 recession, if this happens to us, is you had a 911 millage. So the 911 millage brought in approximately between 7, 8, 900,000 those years that it was there, which then looks like an increase to the general fund, but was not.
What years did that stop?
According to my figures, I would say the initial portion came in probably in the end of December, like that early tax collection, I would think. I'm not sure if the millage was summer or winter. So John was going to go back and look at that historical data. He and I were talking about it when we were off to see what that collection would have been for that 911 millage back then and what our property tax collection was estimated to be. So what I see from our records is in 2008, it's pointed off, meaning we have a current taxes and a county allocated. John will look into the 2007 10.5, but it looks like it's 08, 9, and 10 for sure. And then it drops off and then ends. So depending on the tax. And so when you're looking at our revenue and expense reports, granted, we had a transfer out that would have gone to the 911 fund, but your current taxes looks higher than what actually your property tax brought in. So when you get to 2011, you no longer have your 911 millage. You get to 2012, you no longer have that millage. So when I look at these figures, and we can send you just what the property taxes looked like I stated earlier, it is a constant, in essence, slow rise. So like I said, in 05, you're 6.5. In 06, you're 7.1. In 07, we'll have to get what that was supposed to be, because on paper it looks like 10.5, which would not be unless something else was on the ballot. And then in 2008, you go to 8.7, and then 9 is 8.3, 10 is 8.4, 11 is 8.4. So that's where you kind of get into that same number where you talked about no growth.
Okay, we don't need to solve this today, but
No.
I just, moving forward for the budget process, I think we need to look ahead more than just 1 year and start planning for that. So you guys get it sorted out so you're both on the same page and everybody agrees what the historical numbers were and what they represent, and we'll work at it from there.
Do you want from us or from him on the property tax side of it? Is that kind of what you're looking more on the property tax?
Well, I'm looking at the major revenue sources that we have. Where's our money coming from? Property taxes are the number one. But there's some other things we get, transfer taxes, that kind of stuff. Look at the big dollar amounts. Yeah, PILT money, it's probably going to go away, but that's peanuts compared to how much we our revenue from property taxes. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I think Commissioner Lofter's granddaughter had her hand up.
Commissioner Rushton.
Get into budget that those, like say PILT dollars, if those PILT dollars are allocated towards an expense directly, we need to know information like that. So if PILT dollars go away, we no longer have the income available for that expense. So we're going to need to see what that looks like. If revenues, specific revenues are reduced or eliminated, we have to see how that affects the expense and how we're going to adjust.
Okay.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I think it's going to be a very interesting budget year for those reasons, as Deborah was just saying. As we look at, even though they look like little numbers, we do count on those revenues to fund different things. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all those play out, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get into those numbers. I mean, we do every year, but this year's just a little bit different. Hopefully we'll be enough out of this woods to know how to create a really reliable 21 budget.
Yeah, that PILT's a great example. For example, as you know, you set aside a portion of that every year to pay for the 911 upgrades. And so if the PILT dollars do not come in, that has an impact on that, which impacts our general budget. So yes, it does all impact it directly, one way or the other. Even though it's not general fund dollars, it does impact our general fund budget, because if those money aren't there, we need to make up for that. We still have bills come in paying for that equipment. So we have to come up with those payments. So that's a great example of how it may be a small amount, but it does impact our general fund budget long term.
Are we done with that? Are we done?
Yes, well, hopefully we won't have expenses with the buildings that we've been, reoccurring for the last several years. So that would be to our benefit that we've got those out of the way, and we probably won't plan for new or change the additions to the administration building.
Yeah. We are going forward, coming up with what we call phase 2 or 3, but that's just to be prepared in the event that we have to, but yes.
That's what I'm saying. We probably won't go forward with that
Probably.
under these conditions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. So then that would bring us then to the letter of understanding.
Yeah, this is more of a housekeeping thing. I don't know if Matt's still there.
Yes, I'm still here.
All right, let me just give an overview. In our labor contracts, we have different clauses there for people with their vacation. We have caps on vacation points. Obviously, for the law enforcement and 911, this is a unique time, and we have to be careful of granting vacations. In the labor contracts for the law enforcement, it gives sheriff the sole discretion to extend vacation time periods and still be in compliance, which he has done. In the dispatcher contract, there is no such clause. So it needs to be a board approval. And what you have is a copy of a letter of understanding that actually Matt Enzorgi has recommended this to us. We only have a few employees that may be impacted by this. 2, I believe, Michelle saying, that may be impacted, that could potentially lose some vacation time. We obviously don't want to harm those people. This letter was originally drafted by the labor union, but then Mr. Peter Cole fine-tuned it and drafted it. So even though it's on the stationery of the union, which is perfectly fine, I have no issues with that, Mr. Cole did revise it and sign off on it. And so this was discussed last week as our finance committee meeting, and it's being recommended by our legal counsel, by Matt, by myself, and by our finance committee that we approve this short-term letter of understanding, so no dispatcher gets penalized for losing vacation days. So Matt, you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, dispatchers have been basically put at a disadvantage with this whole coronavirus situation. They've been working extremely hard. We did have a spike in call volume for quite a few weeks there. We continue to monitor call volume levels as we move forward, but dispatch has been dealing with a lot of different callers, emergent and non-emergent. So thankfully everybody seems to know exactly what's expected of them under these executive orders, but that was definitely not the case when this all started, and dispatchers have handled themselves very well. And I would really hate for them to miss out on vacation hours because they're unable to take vacations at this time.
And Matt, you still have one dispatcher that's a military deployment, correct?
Correct. Julie may be coming back in the next couple months. We have not elected to backfill her position after our trainee left. So we'll be ready when Julie gets here.
And if you read the letter, it says that this will expire once the governor releases Michigan from the emergency order. So it's a short-term situation, and there's no financial impact to the county.
Commissioner Rushton.
Move to accept the letter of agreement between Leelanau County and the Fraternal Order of Police to temporarily waive the 240-hour maximum vacation limit until the governor of Michigan releases the emergency orders or upon 30 days written notice from the administrator to terminate the letter of agreement.
Support. Support.
Commissioner Wessel, you did have, yes, I heard you support it. Did you have your hand up for, or were you?
I was
make
going to make the motion. That was
Oh,
okay.
Okay, sorry. Any other comments?
I just
Okay.
myself, I think it's the right thing for us to do.
Yes, and that's what I just figured it out. 8 hours times 240 divided by 8 hours is 30 days. So we're allowing them to go past 30 days of vacation.
As I said, we did this for our law enforcement.
Yeah. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and all those opposed, please raise your hand. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to clarify a comment I made last week. One of the dispatchers who was not shy, Jessica Clemente, called me out on it, and I agreed with her. When I was talking, I believe last week, about the dispatcher and so forth, I pointed out how they're still working their same shifts, their same routines. And I did not mean to imply that their lives have not been changed by this. If I gave that impression, I apologize. Obviously, they're still taking calls, but there's a lot of calls that has taken a toll on them emotionally and mentally. And so I do want to recognize the fact, I think we all do, that we really appreciate all their efforts. And I know Matt has been telling me how hard they've been working. So I didn't want to give anybody the impression that this has not impacted the dispatchers. It has. They are dealing with emotional issues. They're dealing with people that have struggled financially and have had mental challenges and so forth. So it does impact every one of those people. I just want to say I appreciate all their efforts, and I apologize if I may have misspoke last week about their daily routine. I just want to go on the record. I want to thank Jessica for calling me out on that.
Commissioner Rushton.
If we think about it, our 911 operators are our first line of defense. Without them, they cannot dispatch medical, fire, or police in emergencies. So they have a lot of responsibility, and that job requires compassion, knowledge, so many other things. So we should not forget that they are our first line of defense.
Well stated.
Any other comments?
Matt?
I'm very happy that the board is supportive of this. It does go a long way to, I guess, express what kind of importance our dispatchers have. They're very, very important to me, and they're very important to the community, even though there's never really any face-to-face interaction. They are the lifeblood out there on the radio and on the phone, and it's good to have them there, and I'm very lucky to have each and every one of them.
Commissioner Rushton.
We forget sometimes that when you have a operation ongoing, those dispatchers are used throughout certain scenes when it comes to additional equipment, resources. And so it's just not a 911 dispatcher who's picking up the phone and taking the initial call. They are obligated in their position to work scenes just like a fire chief or a police officer. They're the ones that get the backup or the resources to the scene. So maybe you didn't know that, and I just wanted to share that.
Commissioner Answergy. Oh, I thought you raised your hand. I'm sorry. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we will move on to the hazard pay request.
Yeah, in mid-March, I received written requests from our unions that represent the dispatchers and all law enforcement. We have 6 unions, as you know. 5 of them represent the dispatchers and law enforcement. And we received letters requesting hazard pay. I believe the same letter went out to virtually every county in the state of Michigan based on my feedback. We as administrators have been looking at this. I've had discussions with the sheriff on this. At this point, only 2 or 3 counties in the state are looking at this, and some are looking at maybe some extra compensation in terms of time off, but everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens. The sheriff and I agreed that if there's money at the federal state level, we would of course apply for that. There's a proposal in Congress right now called the HEROES Act to give additional compensation for people that are deemed critical. There also is a proposal at the state level. I've had feedback from the offices of Senator Peters and Councilman Bergman. This will be discussed at this next wave. I understand there may be a stimulus package once again being discussed in the next couple of weeks. This may be a part of it. And that's one of the reasons we deemed those people critical, because if there is federal or state money coming in, they have to be deemed critical, which we have done. Once again, though, even though we deem them critical, we have been working with each individual that's had unique circumstances. And we're trying not to punish anyone, because I know there was some controversy of that, and I brought it up before. But for example, we had a dispatcher who had to self-quarantine themselves for 2 weeks. Even though they were critical, we of course gave them that time as we did with any other employee. So we're trying to be fair. We have a couple of law enforcement people who had health issues that we have given them days to treat them the same as we have every other employee here. So we're trying to be as fair as possible. I discussed hazard pay at last week's finance and budget meeting. We talked about hazard pay. We also talked about additional time off for our critical employees. And I think the feedback from the committee was that we should wait and see what happens at the federal state level. Currently, the state police in Michigan are getting additional compensation. At the county level, only 2 of the 83 counties were looking at that. The other ones are kind of taking the same approach we are. We'll just wait and see what happens at the federal state level before we take actions. But Commissioner Bonnet, Commissioner Lautner, and Commissioner Russell was part of the budget committee. I don't know if there's anything else that you wish to add to that at this time. Commissioner Wessel.
Well, yeah, I thank you. We have a lot of essential workers and a lot of critical workers, and I mentioned at last week's finance meeting that I appreciated what our folks on the road patrol and in the jails and in the sheriff's office and across the county are doing. But I'm also concerned about all of our essential workers that are face to face making it happen in the county building, and the people in the grocery stores, and the people in the post office, and all of the others that have either put their lives at risk or they've lost their jobs and lost their benefits. So I certainly hope that we hold off on anything. And if we do have a way of recognizing our essential workers, that we make sure that all essential workers are included and not single out one group. So I'm pleased that I think we're not moving forward on this now. If something comes from the federal government, then obviously let's do it. But if we do something at a county level, I think we need to do it across the board with all of the people that have been seeing us through this crisis. Thank you.
Any other comments? So seeing none, then that would bring us then to public comment again.
You want to say the phone number again?
Yeah, and I had the phone number here. If there is any public comment, it's 231-256-8103. That's 231-256-8103. If there's any public comment, we'll wait a minute to see if the phone is going to ring. I know, but it's public comment time. There are 17 people watching. So seeing none then, and not hearing any, if it rings, we would answer it, I believe. And so that could then we're at commissioner comment, Commissioner Ansargi.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate Jen calling and talk with me. We had a very lengthy conversation, and I do appreciate her strong efforts on helping me get some understanding of what I was asking for. So I just want to recognize that she gave up part of her evening to talk to me. So thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Sutis Little.
Yeah, I want to thank April and her staff for doing just an amazing job of supporting our seniors and ensuring that all their needs were met. And I think the Suttons Bay Congregational Church fundraising effort for the senior meals, collaborating with the restaurants, not only supports our seniors, supports our small business, and how our community has been thinking outside the box and engaging in meaningful collaboration. And that's taking place throughout the county. You see it all the time. And Tony, I want to thank you for encouraging to take a long-term look at the budget, not just our coming year. And I agree with the many points you raised. I think Michelle, Chet, and John, and excuse me, for already starting down this path. This year's budget process, it's going to be really important to examine the economic impact rather than go forward on assumptions. And I think that's part of what you were pointing out, Tony. We have many agencies that can give us facts and can give us real data, like Networks West, that have already started down this path. So we need to blend that information with that which we are getting from our departments so that we can be conservative but wise in the way in which we're moving forward. And finally, I want to thank John for his real solution, placing a forbearance on for this is going to be a huge help. And a final thanks to you, Will, and to Chet, Michelle, because what you've been doing in forward planning as we're coming out of COVID is going to pay big dividends, and we thank you.
Commissioner Wessel.
I could save time and just say ditto to what Patricia just said. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Along those same lines, I did want to thank you all for everything that you're doing up there, holding down the fort and keeping everything going. But thank you also to all the employees. And, we give credit where credit is due. And we are allowed to take credit for the great financial position that the county is in. But I just also wanted to recognize all of our employees that have also played a part in that by being careful with the health insurance, by being open to new ideas on funding and positions and hours and shifting shift changes, etc. So I just wanted to send a shout out to all the employees too that have helped us along the way. It's been a real team effort, and it's been good. So it's good to be in this position financially today, and not only financially, but hopefully emotionally get through this. So thank you all.
Thank you. Any other comments? So then I would say we are adjourned.